Hey everybody, this is Doug with Artfully Rogue, and I am in Spain in my little workspace here, and after about a year and a half, I'm finally going to change out this temporary little work table to this small welding table. Now, if you're a beginner or hobbyist, this is an ideal first project for you, simply because it's super simple and you only need the basic tools. You only need an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel and a flap disc, and a welder, and of course, some form of measuring and marking tools. This little welding table consists of 4 legs, 2 frames, and the steel that you want to put on the top.
So I actually started with the legs, and obviously because I'm here in Spain, I'm going to be using the metric system. The material that I'm using right now for the legs is a 60 by 60 by 1.5 millimeter thickness on the wall, and I'm going to be cutting these to 100 centimeters. And if you're going to do this in the US, you can use a 2-inch by 2-inch with an 065 wall or 16 gauge wall. The wall thickness doesn't really matter. I chose a thinner wall thickness just to keep the weight of the welding table down. You may want something a little bit heavier duty, but that's totally up to you. I'm going to cut 4 of these. Now, with regards to the height, you want to make sure that you cut these legs so that the height works for you. I wanted my table a little bit higher so I didn't have to lean over when I'm working on projects. Maybe you want a table that you want to sit down at. So kind of think about a restaurant, a high top table or a sit down table. So whichever size works for you, just cut those legs the size that you want. Keeping in mind the material that you're going to be using for the top, you want to factor in that measurement as well. Now, as I mentioned, I'm here in Spain. I'm here for a few months, then I go back to Arizona. If you want to know why I'm in Spain and why you will continue to see videos of me in Spain and in Arizona, then stick around to the end of the video and I will go ahead and tell you that story. I've been really fortunate in the sense that my partner here in Spain, she has a large terrace that is part of her condominium in the complex. And on that terrace is this pergola. And so I've been able to kind of set myself up a small space. Now, I'm not allowed to work here in Spain legally, and I'm not really working and getting paid. I'm really kind of focusing more on my art and my sculptures here. But I do want a welding table that I can rely on that's going to be a little bit more straight. This piece of wood that I'm working on right now, I've worked on for almost a year and a half now. I've changed it out periodically, but as you can see, it moves a lot, and it's really difficult to do anything that is going to be straight. Now, most of the things that I'm working on, like I said, is sculpture, and so straight isn't always, a key factor. I need a welding table. As I mentioned, the tools that you need is a cutoff wheel, which you saw me use to cut these legs. Also a angle grinder with a flap wheel. Now, I'm using the flap wheel here to clean up the cut edges. You want to make sure to do that because after you cut through steel with a cutoff wheel or any cutting device, you're going to have an edge on there that's going to be extremely sharp. And so you definitely don't want to slice yourself at the ends of these tubes. Now, once these legs are complete, then I'm going to start making the frames. Now, one of the other challenges I have here in Spain is just getting material. Now, they have a company here called Obramat. It's very similar to Home Depot, and just like Home Depot prices, you're going to pay a lot more for steel than you will if you just go to a metal supplier. But in order for me to go to the metal supplier, I don't have a big truck here. Every car that you see on the road is small. And so the other day, I finally decided to order some steel from the local steel supplier, and I had picked up a lumber rack for my partner's car. And as you can see here, I had just picked up the steel. It's loaded on the car, and I'm heading back to the house now. I have to go through town and kind of next to the Mediterranean Sea, so I can't complain. The view here is amazing. But once I make it back to the condominium complex, I have to go down into the parking garage. And then from the parking garage, I need to go into the elevator, up one floor, into the house, through the kitchen, and then out to the pergola. So it's a nice little adventure just to get the steel to do a project. So these next pieces that I'm cutting are for the frame. And for these pieces, I'm using a 40 by 40 by 1.5 thickness. And I'm going to cut 2 at 80 and 2 at 60. Now in the US, you want to use 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. The wall thickness can be 6.5, again, whatever thickness you want. But try to keep the weight down if you're going to be moving this thing around. And you're going to be cutting 2 at 32 inches and 2 at 23.5. Now again, these material measurements are kind of loose. You need to do it's going to work for you. But there's going to be a frame at the bottom and then a frame at the top. The frame at the top is what's going to support the top section of the welding table. So on this particular point in the build video, 2 of my legs are a little short. And so I'm going to cut this excess and I'm going to extend the legs simply by welding on the ends. Now a lot of this has to do with the fact that I was going to get 3-meter long material, but 3-meter long material would stick over the car just a little too long for comfort. And I decided to have the supplier cut it down to 2 meters. What this did for me was now reduce the ability for me to make all my pieces in one length. Luckily for this project, this is the only thing that I had to do this for. The legs were all in one piece, the top was in one piece, but only 2 of these legs needed some additional material added to that. It took me another 10-15 minutes to get these cut, cleaned up, and then welded. When I'm putting these 2 pieces together, you want to make sure that you bevel the edges. That way your weld will get into that seam. If you don't, then you're just welding on top of the steel, and I don't think that's not really as good of a bond as it should be, and therefore, clean up those edges, put a bevel on it, and that way you can weld in the valley of that. Now to make sure that these 2 pieces stay straight, I am taking another piece of steel and clamping that to the sides of the 2 pieces that I want to weld. That's kind of an obvious trick, but some people may try to hold that in place. If you're interested in actually getting the hard copy build plans for this small weld table, you can go to my website, artfullyrogue.com, and go into the shop area and you can pick up the weld plans. So now, once I get to this point, all the pieces for the frames are cut. I'm going to go ahead and square these up, and I'm just using some frames that I actually picked up on Temu. I don't know if you guys have heard about this in the US. I'm sure that you have. It's similar to Amazon in the sense that they're overseas materials, tools. I picked these up as part of a video because I wanted to pick up a bunch of Temu tools and give them a test. I'll put that video up here as well, so you can see all the different tools that I picked up in Temu. They're super cheap with regards to price. Some of them are like dirt cheap with regards to quality, but these frames actually turned out pretty nice. They're aluminum frames. You can see that they have kind of a unique little adjustment mechanism there. And anytime that I do a frame, I'm only going to tack just a few corners. I still want the flexibility of shifting this frame once I get it welded so I can make sure that it's square. So I'm going to come to each corner, I'm going to make sure that it's square, make sure that it's flat, and then I'm going to put a tack usually on the inside corner, like right here. Tacking on the inside corner allows you to shift a little bit. And even this tack right here, that will still allow me to do my shifting that I need. So I'm going to do both frames just like this. And now that both frames are complete, we can move on to the next step in this process. The next step is you want to attach your frames to the legs of the welding table. Now I hope that you have a better work surface than I do, because I can guarantee that this is not going to come out exactly the way I want to and not 100% square. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the top, I'm going to line up the bottom so that I can at least try to get these two legs looking the same. So the side that I'm standing on right now is going to be the top of the welding table, just to kind of give you a sense of perspective. All right, I'm flushing that to the top of the legs. Once I know that that is positioned properly, then we're going to go ahead and weld that in place. So the second frame is going to go near the bottom of those legs. So now that I have everything positioned, I'm doing my tack welds in my corners so that these two frames will stay where they're supposed to stay. Now I'm going to add the other legs. Basically, I'm going to set them up the exact same way I set up the other ones. The side that I'm standing on is the top, so it's going to go flush right there at the corner. Now, if you noticed, or if you've watched any of my videos, I'm actually wearing tennis shoes right now. More often than not, I weld in flip-flops. And I've had people ask, man, why do you weld in flip-flops? That's gotta, like, you know, that's so stupid. Well, in Spain right now and in Arizona right now, it's summertime and it's freaking hot. So I don't wear jeans when it's that hot. Here, it's very humid. In Arizona, in the Tucson area, during monsoon season, it also gets very humid. And so I tend to wear shorts when I am welding or when I'm in the shop. If you wear tennis shoes or you wear work boots when you're welding shorts and you start grinding or you start welding, those sparks have the possibility of going inside your shoe where your foot goes inside your shoe. And that really sucks. It hurts. It hurts a lot. Right now I'm wearing tennis shoes because I went out earlier to go pick up the steel and I just didn't take my tennis shoes off. Now these are just regular old running shoes. So what's happening right now is I'll get a spark every now and again that will land on the mesh top part of that shoe and burn its way straight through to the sock. Now, if I were to take my socks off right now and show you, you can see that the socks have tons of holes, specifically for this reason. The reason I wear flip-flops is because it'll bounce off the top of my foot and onto the floor, and rarely, if ever, burn the top of my foot. So as crazy as it sounds, wearing flip-flops is actually better than wearing tennis shoes if you're going to wear shorts in a workshop. Now this is where I should probably give you the disclaimer, you know, do as I say, don't do as I do. Make sure you wear the proper gear. Get yourself a good helmet, get yourself some good gloves. Make sure you're outside in a well-ventilated area. If you're not inside and you're inside, make sure you put some fans on or put some kind of, like, you know, exhaust fumes in there. Welding fumes are not great to breathe. And make sure that you're wearing the proper, you know, clothes. Don't wear anything synthetic. Wear natural fibers like cotton, denim. Those aren't going to burn. You know, they'll hit you. It may, like, create a hole, but it's not going to catch you on fire. So here we are with the frame standing upright, and now I'm going to go ahead and start putting all the welds where they need to be. So I want to double check the squareness, and the easiest way to double check square, just go corner to corner, check your measurement, and then do the opposite corner measurement. If both measurements are the same, then you're square. This was a little bit skew. So I wanted to make sure that I square this up before I start welding. Now I'm going to tell you, whenever you start welding, clamp everything you can. I don't have a lot of clamps here right now. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go back and forth and try to tack weld these areas and not focus on one side completely. If you focus on one side completely, you're going to end up warping the material. Now on this particular weld, the weld is vertical and it's on the outside, so this is not going to affect the squareness of the frame. But on the interior corners, that's where I did my tacks. Basically, you want to spend all your time right now getting all your welds in place. All your outside seams, all your inside seams, all your corner seams, get those welded so they're nice and strong. Once that's complete, take a heavy-duty wire brush if you have one, and you can go ahead and run that across the weld, and that'll help clean up what you can't get to with the flap wheel. Okay, and as I expected, you know, it is a bit off. I don't know if it's the OSB floor that I am working on. I don't know if it was the table that I'm working on, but either way, it is not completely square. So we're going to go ahead and make some adjustments to accommodate for the workspace that I'm working in right now. So after flipping this onto its side and taking a quick measurement of the bottom portion of the legs, I realized that I'm off by about 5 centimeters. That's about a quarter of an inch or so. And so I'm going to go back, I'm going to take the shortest leg, and I'm going to make all of the legs the same measurement as the shortest leg, which means just taking the cutoff wheel and cutting those so that they all line up. Not the perfect situation. Like I said, I don't know if it was the table, but obviously the measurement was not correct, or the lining up the frames may have gone off, but I've been doing this for a long time and even I still make mistakes. So don't fret, there's always a way out of it. There's always a way you can modify. So don't freak out. It's a welding table. You know, you want something that's going to be straight, you want something that's going to be solid, but you know, you can always cut it, you can always re-weld it, you can always make it right. It's not the end of the world. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just trimming up the bottoms of these legs, and then I'll move on to the next step. And the next step is to cut the pieces for the top. Now I'm using a 30 by 60 by 1.5 steel tubing here. Each piece is going to get cut to 100 centimeters. If you're doing this in the US, you're going to probably want to use like a 1 by 2, thickness 0.065. You can cut these at about 40 inches or so. Again, this is all going to be custom for you, so you know, you can do whatever you want, but 40 inches is about the equivalent of 100 here in Spain, or in the metric system. With all of those pieces cut, you lay that out on the top of your table. Now I'm just kind of centering these pieces onto the table frame, and I'm going to tack one on each side. So one closest to the camera and the one furthest from the camera. Now you're going to see a lot more movement in the camera because right now I have the tripod on the OSB surface, and when I walk around on that surface, it moves everything in there. We're going to speed up just a little bit so you don't have to sit through all of this. So now that I'm adding the slats to the top of the table, I'm going to go ahead and get these things spaced, and I'm using a 30 by 30 piece of wood. That way I have a gap in between each slat. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I want to have the ability to clamp a piece of work directly to the table. I don't want to have to always go to the edges. Sometimes a piece may be longer and I want more clamps on the center as well. Now I have a similar table like this in the Arizona shop, but it's much larger. The slats are spaced much further apart. It was an old steel pallet that we ordered material on, and we just turned it into a table. With that particular table, things fall through the slats, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. But this way, there's about 30 millimeters between each slat. I can easily get a clamp between, and I can also lay things on top of the table, and they won't necessarily fall through. As you notice here, I kept 2 of the slats together. Now, at some point, I'm going to add a vise to that, so that's where I'm going to be clamping the vise. And once I get all of those tacked in place, I'm going to come back and I'm going to weld each one individually to the top part of the frame. I'll do this side, and then I'm going to flip the entire thing over, and then I'm going to weld the other side. Now there you go. It's a super simple welding table that you can do. This is it. It's 4 legs, 2 frames, all the slats on top, and you can do this in an afternoon or in a morning, and it's super easy for hobbyists and beginners. But I've added some accessories, and I would like to introduce to you.
Once in every lifetime, a small welding table is born that redefines the very idea of what a small welding table can be. This is not just a table. It's a revolution in steel, a foundation for fabricators, a throne for the torch. It begins with storage, a precision-forged rack for angle grinders, always ready, always within reach, because time spent searching is time not welding. A hardened steel bar holds your welding clamps in line, like loyal soldiers standing by, waiting for the next spark-fueled mission. The humble wire brush, often forgotten, but not here. Here it has a home, a place of honor. The helmet, your visor to the fire. No more tossing it aside. It now hangs with pride in a place worthy of its purpose. The machine, the power source, strapped down and secured, part of the table, part of you. Accessories, stored on a custom rack, sleek, efficient, sliding out like a drawer of destiny. Cutoff wheels, flap wheels, ear protection, all on one slab of steel. Simple, elegant, and ruthless. And then there's this, the piece de resistance, the crown jewel of craftsmanship. Behold the nectar of the gods, a side-mounted protector of all that is sacred, because even legends need to hydrate. Built not just to weld, but to inspire.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. And like I promised, I'm going to tell you the story of why I'm here in Spain. Now, first of all, forgive any background noise because I'm in the city. This is Alicante. I'm about 5 to 7 minutes away from the Mediterranean Sea. This is where my partner lives, and my pergola workshop is right over there. So I'm sitting right above the road, and it's in the morning, so there's a lot of business traffic going on. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but there may be a few breaks in the video if I hear something loud. In September of 2023, I decided to walk the Camino de Santiago. Now, I got the idea from a movie called The Way. It has Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez. Now, if you've never heard of the movie or if you've never heard of the Camino de Santiago, check it out. It's really kind of cool. It started out as a pilgrimage many years ago. People would walk from all parts of Spain and converge in the town of Santiago. It's also known the Way of St. James. Now, I walked one of the more popular routes called the Camino Frances. It starts in the south of France at Saint Jean Pied de Port. And then you walk 500 miles across Spain. I took 32 days to do that, and you end up in Santiago with the option of going beyond Santiago to Finisterre, which is the end of the walk. It ends at the ocean. There's a big lighthouse there. You can then go up to Muxia, which is also another lighthouse. By that point, I was kind of spent and my goals were met, but that's for another story. I decided to walk the Camino because it was just a time in my life where I thought my business was doing well, but it really wasn't what I was passionate about. I wanted to kind of get to know myself a little bit better, and that's not even like the correct way to do it, or correct way to say it. I needed the adventure. I needed to push myself. I'd been working in the shop really hard to build my business, and I really needed this for me. I needed to see a sense of accomplishment that I felt something that would be, hard to do. So I made my way from Phoenix to the south of France, and my determination to start the Camino on September 1st was met by the fact that I'm just going to walk this alone. I'm going to really deep dive into myself, and I did for the first day. But as I say on the Camino has a way of having you cross paths with people that you never really thought would cross paths in your life. I started out in St. John's, going up and over the Pyrenees with a woman from Canada and a woman from Ireland, and probably after about an hour, they went on their way, I went on my way. You walk at different speeds. We passed the town kind of near the top of the Pyrenees called Orasson. And it's a lot of people who want to break up that trip into 2 sections because it's pretty steep and it's pretty hard on you. But during that time, I met a lot of people, but 3 specific people that really kind of like ended up becoming family. The first was another American from Indianapolis. We walked and talked for maybe 30, 45 minutes. And the next 2 kind of came in a pair. The next 2 that kind of stood out were an older Spaniard, my age, and a younger Frenchman. And basically, when you're walking the Camino and you see somebody and you pass them or you briefly, there's kind of a common saying where you say, "Buen camino," have a nice walk, enjoy your walk, good walk. So by the time I made it to Roncesvalles, and you're getting ready to go into the albergue, which is also the hostel, which is where most pilgrims, which is what you're called when you're walking on the Camino, you stay at an albergue. And one of the first persons that I saw was this American guy. And he had mentioned, hey, he's going out with some friends that he met for dinner, and would I like to join? Well, still in my mind and thinking, you know, I want to walk alone. I also had to make some phone calls for business back home. By the time I made it towards the place where he said he was having dinner, they were gone, but it's a small place, so I ended up seeing them, and I took a picture of these guys. And by that point, there was one more guy with them. He was from, I believe, Sweden. And, you know, we all kind of just hung out for a little bit. Waking up the next morning, about to get onto the Camino, and here's the picture that we took. And from that point, we were no longer walking alone. We were walking with friends, Camino family. And we walked from town to town until we got to the end. Now, along the way, we met more people. At one point, we had 2 girls from, I want to say, Catalonia. I'm probably getting this right, from the Barcelona area. And then we met another woman from Spain. But we became the Cinco Amigos. And I don't know if you've heard of the app, WhatsApp, but that's used a lot here in Spain. So, you know, we kind of created this group, the Cinco Amigos. And so, you know, when you walk in the morning, maybe you're walking alone by yourself, maybe you walk with a group, but you end up getting to the same town, near the same time, staying at the same place, you're sharing stories. The Spaniard that was in the group, he and I would walk a lot together. We're about the same age. But here's the catch. I don't know Spanish. I mean, I know some basic words. And at the time, he didn't know English. So here's these 2 old guys walking through Spain, not able to really communicate with each other, except by Google Translate or DeepL, which are some translators. But we enjoyed our company. You know, we could walk and enjoy the space and enjoy the time and really kind of just stop and take it all in. At the end of the day, we'd all sit around, have beers, have food, and it was a great journey. But I'm going to jump forward to the end of the Camino after an amazing adventure, and just something you got to do it to believe it. I ended up connecting with the woman from Spain. I didn't realize it at the time. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was not on the market, you know, so to speak. I was in my own head, doing my own thing. And it wasn't until maybe the last few days that relationship kind of started to blossom a little bit. Like, we saw that there could be a potential. We knew that there was going to be some challenges. I live in the US, she lives here in Spain. I don't speak Spanish. She speaks good English, but she doesn't feel she speaks great English. So yeah, we had a lot of hurdles. When I left the Camino and went back to the US, we kept in touch, and it wasn't until maybe a month or 2 after the Camino that we agreed that I would come back over, and we're going to give this a shot. I was here for a month in January, I think 2024. and things went well. I'm like, okay, all right, this could actually be something. So I came back to Arizona, or I went back to Arizona, and from that point on, every 2 to 3 months, I come back to Spain. I go to Arizona, where my shop is located, and I do all of my work. And life is, you know, there in Arizona. But then I fly back to Alicante, Spain, and I do my thing here. I take quotes, I do designs, I still work on things for my business back in Arizona. And I'm very fortunate in the sense that most of what I create is very custom, and customers are willing to wait for me to return. When I'm here, I'm focusing more on the art, which is why I built this small welding table, because I need to kind of step up my game here. I do have, or I'm in the process of renewing what's called a non-lucrative visa. I'm allowed to be here as a resident. I'm not allowed to work legally. If I can get through to my renewal, then I'll be able to apply for my work visa. And once I have my work visa, then I can start selling art and making money here in Spain. That visa will be good for the next 2 years. So I've been here with a 1-year visa, and you know, it's allowed me to come and go freely. I don't have to limit myself to my visits. So that's it. That's the reason why I'm here in Spain. This is why you're probably going to see more videos coming from Spain and also Arizona. That's it. If you have any questions, ask those down in the comments. I'm more than willing to answer any questions you might have on what the process was in getting here, how life is here, what projects you might want to see while I'm here. I'm going to start working on some bronze ideas. This is going to be the first time doing bronze. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Now, if you've made it this long in the video, I have a quick announcement. I am opening memberships on the Artfully Rogue YouTube channel. And go check out the membership information, but you're going to have access to the rebuilding a building over here, the fascia of the building, so you probably hear that in the microphone. There's going to be a Discord group so that we can go in and chat. I'm going to start doing live videos maybe once a month where you can ask questions while I'm doing a project. You're going to have more direct interaction, and you're going to have access to free plans. So everything that I build, I'm going to create a plan for it, and you're going to be able to access those plans so you can build them yourself. It's developing, but you can get a membership right now. And another hint is I'm creating an online course for a small welding business. So if you want to become a welder and you want to start a business as a welder, that course will be up and coming. And between you and me and this video, I believe it's December 8th, 2025, the first 50 people to sign up as a member on the YouTube channel will get the course for free. I will send it to you for free. So first 50 as of December 8th, 2025, because this video is going to go on forever, I'm sure. We'll see you in the next video.